The Pittsburgh Steelers have needed many, many prayers in their long losing history in the NFL, but 1972 was different. 1972 was the season it all came together for Art Rooney's dream team, and the city of Pittsburgh went wild over their division champions. Girella's Gorillas, Franco's Italian Army, Dwight's Whites, Jack Ham's Polish Partisans, and even Joe Green's Green Babushkas were out in force for the AFC Championship at Three Rivers Stadium. But their opponents were the dream team of all time, and the Miami Dolphins came to Pittsburgh ready to continue their climb to the summit. With two young and spirited teams, the AFC Championship 1972 promised to be one of the more interesting in recent years, and indeed, it would be just that. I'm Al Meltzer, and this is the NFL Game of the Week, the AFC Championship. The Dolphins received the opening kickoff and were determined to send their 2,000-yard runners, Zonka and Morris, on the same successful journeys they have taken all year. But one of the key factors in the first half was the ability of the Steelers' defense to contain both Dolphin backs, particularly Morris. The Dolphins managed a couple of first downs, however, and on 1st and 10 from midfield, Morrill went to the air. The first down pass designed to catch the Steelers' secondary napping. But Morrill overthrew Twilly right into the waiting arms of safety Glenn Edwards. The Steelers had the first break in a game where breaks would no doubt be the difference in the outcome. Edwards' interception brought the offense in for the first time, and they proceeded to roll right through the no-name defense. On a 7-minute, 11-play drive, all of them runs, Rookie of the Year Franco Harris led the Steelers goalward. The Steelers would have trouble holding onto the ball in this drive, but would be fortunate to keep possession on their fumbles. Harris fumbled out of bounds, and 2 plays later, Bradshaw rolled left, was laid out by Jake Scott, fumbled into the end zone, and came up with 6 points. The man who scored was tackle Jerry Mullins, and the alert Steelers seemed to be on a charmed course to victory, the same charmed course they took the week before against Oakland. A repeat of the play shows number 57, Sam Davis, rolling out to block for Bradshaw on what was an option pass or run. Terry chose to run, but Jake Scott's tackle stopped Bradshaw cold on the 3rd down play and should have saved the score and forced a field goal. Instead, the Dolphins were down 7-0. But the Steelers were also down, because on the play, Bradshaw had hurt his shoulder and would later leave the game for a long time. The rock-tough Bradshaw had forced his own injury by trying to bull his way in for the score. He paid the price a running quarterback must pay. Bradshaw came back in the next series, but as our isolated shot of his reaction shows, he was not effective at all and sat down for the entire second quarter. Meanwhile, the Steeler defense continued to contain Mercury Morris with the play of middle linebacker Henry Davis, number 53, particularly effective filling the gaps. Late in the first quarter, however, Morrill and the Dolphins' offensive line turned Zonka loose, and the team began to move. The Steelers were double zoning Warfield and Twilly, so Morrill's passing strategy centered on the tight end Marv Fleming over the middle. But after moving near midfield, L.C. Greenwood stopped Morris and the Dolphins again on 3 downs and forced a punt. A punt which never came to pass and ended in a run and one of the big plays of the game. Seeing no punt rush, Larry Seipel had ad-libbed his way to the 12, and from here the Steelers were zonked back into the end zone by number 39 himself with the help of All-Pro guard 66, Larry Little. After running right, Morrill flipped an outlet pass to Zonka on the left side. He busted a futile attempt at a tackle by cornerback Mel Blount and tied the game at 7. The alert play by Larry Seipel had been the big one, and as Coach Shula later remarked, was the turning point of the game. The rest of the half saw no more scoring. The Steelers unable to go anywhere under the leadership of second-string quarterback Terry Hanratty. Hanratty was obviously rusty and overthrew his receivers on a number of occasions. So the Steelers tried to stick to their powerful ground game, which had been so instrumental in their reaching the championship. But unlike the first quarter, the second quarter found Miami's defense able to stop Harris and Fuqua on almost every play. The Dolphins' front four, Hines, Stanfield, Denherter, and Fernandez, were particularly prominent in closing down the Steelers' running attack in this quarter. The Steelers were still leading a charmed life, however, as this play will show. The play was ruled dead, not a fumble, and the Dolphins took over on a punt rather than on the Steelers' 20 after the apparent fumble. But the Dolphins, too, were unable to move as Morris was defensed well and Morrill's top receiver, Warfield, was blanketed by one of the NFL's top secondaries. The half ended 7-7 as two very evenly matched squads had played a very even first half in which defense had prevailed. At the start of the second half, with the score tied at 7, Terry Hanratty came out firing. Despite intense pressure from the Miami rush, Hanratty hit 2 consecutive long completions on fine catches by John McMakin and Ron Shanklin. A look at Shanklin's reception from our isolated camera is noteworthy because the man he burned was number 26, Lloyd Mumford, the replacement for starting left cornerback Tim Foley. Foley suffered a shoulder separation, and the smaller Mumford, who is best known as a blocker of kicks on the specialty team, would prove vulnerable throughout the game, despite the fact that he is the Dolphins' fastest player. This is something to watch for in the Super Bowl. Hanratty's passing has Miami on its heels, so he changed pace with a picture-perfect draw to Frenchie Fuqua, who ran 24 yards to the Dolphin 13. It was the third straight Steeler play that gained over 22 yards, and it might have gone all the way if Frenchie hadn't slipped while cutting with an open field ahead. Unfortunately for Pittsburgh, Hanratty's magic ceased here and Miami held. The Steelers were forced to settle for Roy Girella's 14-yard field goal. Nevertheless, with 4 minutes gone in the second half, the miracle-oriented Steelers had broken the tie and had the lead once again, 10-7. Here, Miami coach Shula made a significant but not surprising move in an effort to get his sluggish offense on track. He replaced Earl Morrall with injury-plagued Bob Greasy. So in a highly unusual development for a championship game, both teams were forced to use substitute quarterbacks. Of course, as the Steelers well knew, Greasy is hardly a sub, and his nimble feet and football mind add to the diversified Dolphin attack. Thanks to Mean Joe Green, however, Greasy's debut was less than successful. The Steeler defense had been magnificent all day, but here, as he so often has done in the past, Greasy threaded the needle to Paul Warfield, whose flying feet did the rest. The result was 52 yards and one of the big plays of this ball game. 2 plays later came another, as the ubiquitous Jack Ham, known as Dobreshonka, intercepted Greasy's pass intended for Jim Kick. It appeared that the Pittsburgh defense again had come up with the big play. But a flag was down. Dwight White had been offside, and instead of Pittsburgh having the ball, Miami had a first down on the Steeler 13. Greasy immediately took advantage of this new opportunity. Scrambling around in his backfield like the Greasy of old, despite the stiffness in his injured ankle, the quarterback hit his tight end, Marv Fleming, on the 5-yard line. The former Packer is recognized as a great blocker, but today he burned the Steelers with 5 catches on his way to his 4th Super Bowl appearance. Shortly after Fleming's catch, Jim Kick took a pitch out, followed a Larry Zonka block, and rammed into the end zone with a touchdown that put Miami ahead for the first time in the football game. Terry Hanratty had played little this year, and his rustiness was apparent on the next Pittsburgh series as he constantly failed to reach his receivers. Hanratty's performance was a courageous one, but it failed to move the Steeler offense. At the start of the final quarter, Roy Girella's attempt from midfield was blocked. The Miami defense was now dominating the game and had given the Dolphin offense great field position. Pittsburgh's hopes were rekindled as a groggy Terry Bradshaw warmed up on the sidelines. However, the Miami offense, led by Bob Greasy, quickly doused those hopes by driving downfield for a score. After a pass to Marv Fleming picked up a first down, Greasy turned the ball over to his ground attack. Led by Mercury Morris and Larry Zonka, the Miami machine continued to move goalward as the Steeler offense watched helplessly from the sideline. After Zonka had taken the ball to the 4, Chuck Noll sent in the shock troops to beef up Pittsburgh's defense for the goal line stand. But despite a tentative disclaiming gesture from one fan, most of the 50,350 in the stands looked on with impending doom. For surely another 7 points by Miami this late in the game would end the Steelers' chances for victory. As Miami coach Shula looked on, the Miami offense walked to the line to challenge the steel curtain where it counted most, in the shadow of their own goal line. It was no contest. For Miami, everybody blocks, and Jim Kick followed this teamwork into the end zone for his second touchdown of the day. Miami's lead was now 11 points. As the Steeler defense wearily returned to their bench and watched the ensuing kickoff, their spirits must have been low. But then Pittsburgh's offense took the field and, led once again by Terry Bradshaw, pierced the no-name defense of Miami. 4 times Bradshaw threw, and 4 times his receivers made the catch. The last was by rookie receiver Al Young, who, though covered like a second skin, made an impossible one-handed catch for a touchdown. In less than 2 minutes, Terry Bradshaw had rallied his team to within 4 points of the Dolphins. Now it was again up to the steel curtain defense to hold Miami. On a third down possession play, deep in their own territory, Greasy's receivers were so well covered he was forced to scramble endlessly. He did a masterful job of avoiding the sack, but the Pittsburgh defense had done what they had to do, and the offense had another chance with 3 minutes left in the game. Unfortunately for the Steelers, the no-name defense was more than equal to the occasion. Led by number 84, Bill Stanfield, they sacked Bradshaw for the first time. Then on third down, again under pressure, Bradshaw threw right into the arms of middle linebacker Nick Bonaconti. Now there was only 2 minutes remaining in this first championship game ever for Pittsburgh, and the Steelers could only watch helplessly as Miami and Mercury Morris attempted to run out the clock on the ground. Leaving the dejected Steeler defense strewn in his wake, Mercury put on a great show for a reluctant audience in the town where he was born. More importantly, time was running out, and the Steelers and Chuck Noll watched grimly as Morris and Miami's great ground game rolled relentlessly downfield. But on the Pittsburgh 9-yard line, on a 4th and 1 do-or-die situation with only 48 seconds remaining in the game, the Steeler defense rose up to stop Larry Zonka short of the first down. With 30 seconds remaining, the Pittsburgh Steelers would have one more chance to produce another miracle in Three Rivers Stadium. It was not to be, as Miami linebacker Mike Colin intercepted Bradshaw's poorly thrown pass to end the game. But as Pittsburgh's beaten, battered quarterback trudged off the field for the last time this season, the Steeler fans applauded. Don Shula's Dolphins, in an incredible feat, had won number 16 without a loss, and another try at the Super Bowl crown. To do it, they had defeated Franco's Army, Dwight's Whites, the Green Babushkas, and Girella's Gorillas. But though they had temporarily put a damper on the finest football season in Steeler history, the loss can never erase the pride an entire city has discovered for itself, as well as its football team. But on this, the final day of 1972, the banners and bunting came down for the last time, for the Pittsburgh Steelers had finally run out of miracles. And finally, the stadium was empty, except for the presence of a solitary few too reluctant to relinquish the dream.